ain't nothing else. Let us go to our neighborhoods where our kids are safe. We want our kids safe.
They were throwing eggs at the window and try to hit people with them.
Like we was in school, there was throwing glass at black people and little kids.
I think it's gonna be all right if everybody come and stop being scared, because shoot, I don't think there's nothing to be scared of.
Okay, so I want you to sort of like set the scene for me. In the 70s when busing was going on, what was the conversations that were being had about what it means for schools to be integrated? Like, how did people wrestle with it? How did they talk about it? How did they understand it?
Okay, let me see if I can give you a sincere and genuine answer. I wasn't here, so this is based upon my experience of history, my understanding of history. These were kids. That's where the flashpoint was. It wasn't adults dealing with adults, although you have that, right?
Yeah.
It was their kids. And somebody says in my piece, this is their most precious thing, right? If it was just adults to adults, they would have fights and that would be the end of it. This was kids. And so their most valuable thing was at stake. People thought that was the problem. You can't integrate a society just by integrating schools. That's not, it could, the problem with schools was economic, the disparities of resources in the schools. That should have been dealt with a zillion different ways, right?
Yeah.
Right? Let's fix the schools. I mean, the schools were terrible. And if you hear the former mayor, Menino, he'll tell you his school was horrible. I was in South Boston High School. Have you ever been to South Boston High School? You know, I taught in South Boston High School before I did this piece. There were two separate things. I was doing mentoring for radio. And I walked in there. And the first thing is you walk in and there's a metal detector. And the second thing you see is this very large mural of a war scene from when the school was built. Do you know what war scene that was?
No.
Spanish-American War.
Well, that is, yeah.
It's before World War I that school was built.
Yeah.
So the resource, you go into the classroom and the ceilings are 30 feet high, 20 feet high. You can't hear 2 rows back. You can't hear the teacher. It echoes like crazy. It was a dump. That's where we should have been putting resources separate and apart from this meeting place where the communities come together around their most precious resource, their children. It had to be, it didn't happen in a context. Integration of the schools did not happen in a context. It became the flashpoint for everything else. The communities didn't deal with each other. They didn't know each other. They didn't want to know each other for a variety of reasons, for economic reasons, cultural reasons, social, not political, but it became manifest around the schools. It was done the wrong way. Thinking that, oh, we'll integrate the school and then we'll all be good, right?
Yeah.
It is important. It's crucial. It's critical. I'll give you that, but it's only a piece of the puzzle. So So that's what happened in Boston is they took this explosive situation and lit a match.
Mm.
It was almost predictable. It was predictable. Everybody knew it was going to happen. But let me tell you, the shift in demography, if you look at the population demographic changes from the 1940s, 50s, and 60s in Boston,
Mhm.
it gives you the context for the situation and why this place was a powder keg. You
Yeah.
can't have that kind of immigration. It was immigration. The
Mm.
city was transformed. I mean, do you know that Dorchester Avenue, that used to be Jewish? Did you know that?
No.
Yes.
Huh.
Dr. Spock, Leonard Nimoy, he lived in Dorchester. It was a Jewish community, and it transformed in 10 years. It transformed. The Beacon Hill, the south side of Beacon Hill. I mean, the North End is Italian, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Do you know what it was before Italian?
No.
It was Jewish.
Huh.
And you can walk the streets and you can see temples and synagogues, the symbols, blah, blah, blah. So the history of Boston is one of constant ebb and flow,
Mm.
right? Where the city hall is, that was called West End. That didn't even exist. That was West End, was a community that had been there for a long time. It was urban renewal in the 60s. It was leveled, taken out of existence. So the transformation of Boston in the 50s was profound, right? Look, if you want to know what happened in the 60s and 70s and beyond, look at the 1950s,
Yeah.
right? The post-World War, it changed the everything about Boston. I mean, and so, in this turbulent transformation, people was still sorting themselves out. But the legacy continues. We still are suffering from that unresolved change.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think it's changing now because the coin of the realm, the only thing that people seemingly care about now is money and access to money. That's the new divider. That's why somebody says it's about class and access to education becomes access to money. I think we're seeing a very big shift now where the trades are starting to pay off. And I think that is a big deal.
Do you think it's going to change the demographic or the segregation of Boston in like a completely different way? Like, how is that going to change?
So I think the access to real money, not the old white insurance money, Brahmin money, all that kind of stuff, but the real transformation, the economic transformation of the society is where it's at. And the question then is, that doesn't solve much. It solves part of the problem. It addresses part of the problem. The question really is, as I think about it, is much deeper. Culture is deep. How do you create a culture? Does the culture come together? Is it a parallel cultures? Do we live in stratas or parallel societies that even are economically homogenized, but is culturally segregated? That's a profound question. I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't know.
And what role do you think like public memory can help in either bridging the culture divide or powerful, essential, critical, right? Yeah.
That needs to be taught, and it needs to be not just taught, but lived. We have to understand, we have to come together under a common narrative. We don't have to agree to the facts, right? Because I can pull out facts, you can pull out facts, but we have to have at least the box. We at least have to have this ongoing constant conversation where we know we can say, well, what about this? And well, this happened when I'm talking about demographics, but you're talking about, education. You're talking, we can have, but we need to have these conversations in a rich, profound ways. I don't know. You tell me, are we doing that?
I don't think we are. So I think that was the impulse for this, like right now, American society is at like a very divided crossroads, and memory and how we talk about history and what becomes the narratives of history are becoming more divergent, with people having like just completely different worldviews and not being able to come to a common ground about what happened, what are the facts, what is history. And so I think in some way, like this era of Boston's history is sort of like a larger, it's a smaller microcosm of what is happening nationwide, and sort of like how democracy is fracturing because of a lack of communication and a lack of common ground and a lack of like a common history.
Yes, and I think critical race theory or critical race education is essential, because it's always been true that the history gets written by the victors, and we I don't know why we're afraid of our history. Why are we running away from it? Right? We should be running towards it.